Got one. Oh boy. Oh, he's in some wood. Oh, there's one. Oh, I missed him. No, I didn't. I got him. He came back for it. Welcome back, everybody. So I am super excited to be out fishing today because we are fishing with some brand new lures that finally dropped from iCast. Highly anticipated. That is the Ooni Mas and the Ooni Max. I have the Uni HD right here. Fished this thing a while ago. Absolutely loved it. Now we are fishing with the bigger sizes of it. But before we get into today's video, we are on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway over on Instagram. Love doing giveaways, so make sure to hit that like, share, comment, subscribe, everything, so that we can go ahead and give some stuff away. Very excited to start throwing some baits. Let's get after it. So the Uni HD, this was the original. I believe it's 16 millimeters. Absolutely love this thing. Crushed some smallmouth on it. The HD stands for high density, so it has a natural fall rate out of the package. The original Uni does not. It's like that TPE material, so it floats. So these, in theory, should not require a weight or anything else like that unless you want a faster sink rate, but we'll test that. So the Ooni Mas is 20 millimeters, and then the Max is 24. Once you start getting into these big Urchin baits, I kind of look at them like a glide bait. It's going to be situational, and unless you're around big fish, you're not going to get very many bites. So we're going to start with the 20, and then we'll go to the Max of the 24. But I love these HDs. I love the little one. Again, we caught a ton of smallmouth on it. Caught a lot of largemouth on it too. The high density does a wonderful job of just holding together. Not quite as durable as the TPE ones, but pretty darn close. But when we had thrown this originally, we just threw it on a normal wacky rig hook, or I think when we threw it with the smallmouth, we threw it with the jig head. But these have a little bit more mass to them, so we're probably going to end up throwing on a screw lock just to hold everything together so we don't lose them. We are only fishing one day, 3-4 hours, something like that, until dark, to see how many fish that we can catch on this guy. But let's get after it. All right, we got her all rigged up. It was a little bit more difficult than I thought, or I've had, with previous Urchin baits, but we got the screw lock in there. I was wrong. This does not sink. The regular HD does, but I guess there's probably just enough surface area that this one does not. So you'll have to throw on a nail weight or a Frico rig or something like that. Only problem with the Frico rigs, I don't think they go or they're supposed to go past a 19 millimeter, so it might not reach end to end. So I assume that somebody will come out with a version that will fit, these bigger Urchin baits now that we're getting them released after iCast. One thing I did think was interesting, and drop your comments in the comment section down below, but I just saw the other day on Tackle Warehouse where they are doing 30, I think it was like 20 to 30 or 20 to 50% off a lot of Urchin bait. So I wonder if the market is finally starting to get a little bit oversaturated and they're just trying to get rid of inventory just because there's so many Urchin baits out there, more coming out. The CEO comes out sometime in fall. And then obviously with everybody making every sort of size on top of it and every sort of color, I wonder if there's just too many SKUs to where they're just trying to get rid of a bunch of this stuff. So there might be some savings here in the future if you want to buy some Urchin baits but haven't because they cost $20. They might be getting cheaper in the not too distant future. We can all hope and pray, but we'll see. But let's go ahead and see if we can't catch a couple fish now. There's one. Got him. Oh boy, that doesn't feel too bad. Oh, is that a pike? Oh no. Oh no, it's a bass. There we go. There we go. We unfortunately, not in the corner, in the top. That's kind of weird. We unfortunately had to go to a new lake because we fished the Mas, I believe. Yes, this is the Mas. I don't even know for how long. It was a long time. We fished it for probably 4 hours without a single bite. And I mean, that's just, in my opinion, just kind of how these big Urchin baits are. They're just very situational. If you get into some fish that want to eat them, very much like a glide bait, it's going to be a heck of a day. But if you don't, and They're finicky. In my opinion, not really a finesse bait, but that is a good start. That was our first fish. We've only fished here for about 20 minutes, so let's see if we can't get some more. There's one. Oh, I missed him. No, I didn't. I got him. He came back for it. Little guy. That's probably why we missed him the first time. That is way... He wouldn't even be able to get that thing in his mouth if he tried. Look at this. There's no way he would have been able to fit the whole thing. That's absolutely ridiculous. And with these high density legs, like, they don't bend super well. So, like, you'd have to almost force it to get that into his mouth. All right, that's the second one. We'll try for a little bit longer to see if we can't catch another one on the Mas. And then we'll switch on over to the Max, which I assume will be much, much more difficult. But who knows? Maybe we'll be surprised and we'll find a bunch of big ones. Oh, I got one. Oh, see, these are such small bass. They're like pecking at it. But there seem to be a bunch of small ones around here, so there's got to be a big one somewhere. There's one. Go. That one doesn't feel too bad. That's not one of the tiny ones. Oh, and we're going right into the sun. Hopefully it's a bass. Oh, yeah. It is a bass. Oh. That's not a bad one. Oh, gosh. Come on now. Oh. There we are. Oh, he's got some sharp teeth. Oh, he got a little wound on him too. He's got some crazy sharp teeth. All right, we'll try and get out of the sunlight. That is a solid 2.5, 2 3/4, probably. He's got some crazy sharp teeth. Like, they remind me of bullhead teeth. Right in the corner. Yeah, he wasn't coming off. A little wound down there. Probably didn't get you guys wet. He did. But we'll go ahead and let him go. Solid fish. All right, that's 3 on the Mas. And we'll talk about it at the end. These baits, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the big urchin baits. I just don't find them as really much of a finesse lure at this point in time. Like, once they start getting this big, the small fish can't really get into it. So if you're fishing for a big fish, perfectly fine. But generally, when I'm using big baits, I'm not generally thinking of finesse. I can catch a 5-pounder on the original HD. So me using just bigger and bigger, I feel like that's not a finesse tactic really much anymore. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and switch on over to the Max and see if we can't find some more fish like that one. All right, so this is the Max. I have a 5/0 hook on here. Look who finally got into the Frico rigs, and it doesn't really fit this guy that well. So we might miss a fish because that hook's not going to be able to turn, but we will see what happens. I would have thrown, okay, that's not too bad. I would have thrown on a nail weight, but I don't have nail weights that are big enough to sink this thing. I think the biggest thing that I have is an 1/8 ounce, which did wonderful for the Mas, but the Max are going to want probably something just a little bit heavier. So we're going to start chucking this guy around and see if we can't get into, hopefully, some bigger fish. Got one. Oh boy. Oh, he's in some wood. Oh, we got him out. Oh, that's not a bad bass. There we go. Oh, that is not a bad bass at all. Not too concerned. There we go. That was about the same size as the last one. He got that whole thing in there. We didn't end up missing him at all. I was kind of shocked. I thought with that Frico rig, because it's so embedded, oh my gosh, in the plastic, I thought we'd for sure, where are pliers? I thought for sure that it wouldn't turn. But there we go. Oh my gosh. That thing was never coming off. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. circle hooks. That's that's probably a 2 3/4, almost 3 pounder also. All right, we'll let him go. And she's off. There we go. All right. I am actually shocked because we've only been throwing the Max for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes since we caught that last one. But we'll, again, talk about it a little bit at the end. But I think this is just the difference of fishing a lake where these fish have never seen an urchin bait, which I'm sure they probably haven't here, versus the lake we were at earlier. And I've talked to plenty of people on the shore, and a lot of people are throwing urchin baits just because it's the hottest thing in fishing right now. But get out to some of these lakes where they haven't seen it very much, and apparently they'll eat it like no other. We've actually had a lot of bites, I assume from some small bass too, but bluegill. Bluegill are trying to eat the appendages on this thing as it's falling. You can feel them just peck at it and go to town. It's kind of funny. There have been a couple times where I've thought that they were bass, just because I wouldn't imagine that a bluegill would try to eat a bait this big, but apparently they do not care. And again, I'm sure they have not seen any sort of thing like this. So they're probably thinking it's something they can eat. But we're getting close to dusk. Let's see if we can't get another one. Maybe we'll get one big one. Well, that was the only bite that we had on the Ooni Max. Oddly enough, it came in the first couple minutes of us throwing it, but I thought it'd be difficult. I was surprised at how quickly we were able to catch one, and if we had fished it a little sooner, we probably could have had another bite or two, because basically right after we caught that fish, sun went down and the fish basically stopped. There was a ton of topwater activity from bluegill, bass, pike, and now it's basically nothing. So probably missed our little window, but nevertheless, we were able to catch fish both on the Mas and the Max. So let's go home and talk about our baits. All right, we made it back home after fishing with the Mas and the Max. We got the whole family here, essentially. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, so if you guys don't want to listen, you can most certainly end the video now. But I want to talk about a few different things. First off, I want to talk about our trip. So the first trip we went out, we only threw the Mas, just because it was going to be a little bit easier to catch some fish on, a little bit smaller in size. And we ended up fishing, I think it was 4 hours, maybe a little bit longer, without a single bite. Like, that's wild. I don't understand why the fishing was so bad, especially for a bait that's supposed to catch fish really easily. So that was not ideal. Second day, we went out and ended up catching, I think it was 4 in less than 2 hours. So much better, nothing crazy. But I think that kind of goes to show how much these fish react to these baits based off of how much I've seen them. That first lake we've gone to, I've talked to a number of people out in boats, out on shore, that have thrown urchin baits. A lot of people will talk to me and say that they're catching them on, you know, the spiky ball baits, the urchin baits, the koi keys, and all sorts of stuff. So there are plenty of people that are throwing those baits. And in my opinion, I feel like the fishing with these has gotten worse through the summer. It's supposed to be a finesse bait, so in theory, when those fish are a little bit more difficult to catch later in the summer, that's when this bait should really shine. But it's just gotten worse for me. When I first started throwing these things, you could catch fish without trying. Like anywhere you went, that you would catch them. And in our second lake we went to, I'm sure those fish have either never seen an urchin bait or rarely. And we were having bites instantly, basically. And what was odd is I had a lot of bluegill tried to eat, I assume, the ends of these things, because you could feel them tick on it whenever it was falling. Like, and they ate it or tried to eat it consistently. I haven't had that at any lakes recently, like for a long time. So they were hyper aggressive at that lake, probably because they've never seen that thing. And it's not like conditions were wildly different or anything else like that. I think lake to lake, it was separated by a day. So conditions and barometric pressure, weather, all that stuff was very similar. So I think that this bait is becoming a little bit oversaturated and overused on a lot of lakes. And it's not that, you know, magic bait that it once was when it first came out or became popular. So I think it's slowly becoming just another bait that you can use that might catch them a little bit better, but it's not an end-all be-all by any means. So if you guys are experiencing that out on your lakes, you know, by all means comment that in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear everybody else's experiences with some of these baits, because again, it's changed so drastically in 2 months, 3 months, whatever, and clearly you can still catch them. Like, you can catch them really well. It's not like fishing is just shut off. It's much more difficult to catch them on these, and I think in some upcoming videos we're going to be fishing with some other baits that aren't Urchin baits and see if we do better on those. But yeah, put your comments in the comment section down below, your opinions on all that. Second of all, the other day on Tackle Warehouse, they were giving, I think, 30 to 50% off, or 20 to 50% off, or something like that, selected Urchin baits, and it was a fair number of them. Not the biggest of them. I don't think the koi keys were on there. I don't believe the Mebas were on there, but like the abstracts were on there. The Uni HD was on there. A lot of them. And so I think you end up not only having those baits overused on a lot of lakes, I think we're getting to an oversaturation potentially in the market. And people, you know, with the number of sizes that are available now, with the number of colors, with the number of bait makers, because everybody's making them, I think there's a lot of tackle companies that potentially have just way too many Urchin baits. And at some point in time, you know, especially if the fishing starts to slow down on them, people aren't going to buy them as much. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them in the next couple of months for sure. But there are still some more Urchin baits that are being dropped. I know G-Rat's got one coming out. I've got a pre-order for that. I know the CEO is probably one of the most anticipated because it won ICAST. So there are still some Urchin baits that will be coming out. And once we start getting into fall and closer to winter, you know, those finesse baits, really small baits and stuff like that, are going to come into play. So I think there should be an increase in fish being willing to bite those kind of baits. So we're most certainly going to still be using some Urchin baits, but I'm excited to throw some other stuff for sure. So as far as these, I love the HDs of the Yamamoto, much more than just the original TPE. Not the biggest fan of it. These seem to hold their shape a whole lot better. They don't seem to warp. They don't seem to melt or anything else like that in high heat. So I like those a little bit better. I absolutely crushed on smallmouth with this guy. I like it a lot. The different sizes though, let's get into that. This one, the small one, by far my favorite. I think it's 16 millimeter. These appendages are pretty firm. So they are going to go ahead and have a lot more water displacement than like some of your soft PE baits that kind of like flow a little bit more in the water. So you don't need as big of a bait to go ahead and throw that amount of water displacement, the vibration, everything else like that. So I think that's why probably the Uni, the original HD, the 16 millimeter is probably my favorite. I caught really decent fish the first time I used it on there. I didn't have to use a really big bait to catch big bass. I think we caught some 3 I don't know if we caught a 4-pounder on this guy, but caught a lot of really nice, decent fish. And when I'm thinking finesse, I'm not thinking ginormous glide baits. I'm not thinking ginormous Urchin baits or anything else like that. Not to say that it won't catch fish. It absolutely will. We fished for 2 hours, less than 2 hours, and caught 4 fish on these. And these are probably bigger than what those fish should have eaten. But caught a couple nice 3-pounders on them, so it definitely catches fish. I would not throw these big baits unless you know you have fish that are of decent size in your lakes. Not to say you won't get bites. It's just going to be far fewer than if you're throwing the 16 millimeter. That's just my opinion. Also, if you're throwing it on forward-facing sonar and whatnot, again, if you see a 5-pounder down there, I don't think you have to throw a 20 millimeter or 24 millimeter or anything else like that to get that fish to bite. I think a lot of times, especially when you're throwing finesse stuff, you can still throw some of the smaller mid-sized things and get that fish to bite. That being said, of the two, the Mas is definitely my favorite of them. It is much easier to work. Once you start getting into the Max, things start getting really heavy. There's a ton of drag in the water. So, I mean, those fish are going to be able to feel that from a ways away. So if you're fishing big open areas of water and trying to cover a lot and, you know, draw those fish in, very similar to your glide baits and stuff like that, this probably is a decent option. But you can get tired throwing it. I did when I was throwing it for, I guess I only threw the Mas for the 4 hours, but I couldn't imagine throwing this thing and ripping it like a jerk bait and doing all that stuff for 4 hours like that. I would get tired. But yeah, so out of the two, I would go with the Mas. If you're just trying to pick one or something like that. Not to say that the Max won't catch fish. They all will. They all really, really will. But I think it's just this one, the Mas, is just a little bit more versatile. But again, my favorite would still be the original. Also, as far as the weighting things go for this, I had put on just a nail weight for the Mas. It's just an 1/8 ounce, had a really, really nice fall rate. These things do float, which I didn't think they would because they're the high density. I thought they would sink similar to the original Uni, but nevertheless, yeah, 1/8 ounce seemed to do really, really well as far as that goes. This is the first time I used these Frico rigs. The Frico rig I don't think is built for a 24mm Urchin bait by any means, but it still fit and it still worked, and the one bite that we got on it, we did catch the fish. So I'm sure somebody will probably make these a little bit bigger for, you know, to accommodate those bigger Urchin baits, but I am very disappointed I did not use these Frico rigs sooner because they are so slick. They make it super easy to go ahead and rig that circle hook. Clearly, the first fish that we had bite on it, we hooked up with it, 100% hookup ratio so far with it. But yeah, super, super slick, makes things really easy, especially with some of these TPE baits and stuff like that, that can be difficult to put the nail weight in. And then also, if you end up backlashing, the chance of you throwing that nail weight are pretty decent. So then you can either super glue them and that you're just kind of stuck with that weight, or, you know, you have to replace the nail weight, whatever. So these things are phenomenal. I'm glad I got some of these, and we will definitely be using those in the future. But yeah, I think that's about it. Excited to use some baits that aren't Urchin baits coming up here not too terribly long. But most certainly drop all of your comments down, your opinions, you know, on the, you know, bait industry, the Urchin bait, how Urchin baits are doing in your lake, all that good stuff. But as always, if you guys like the video, if you wouldn't mind liking, and if you want to see more videos like it, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that'd be greatly appreciated also. Until next one.